Continuing on with inflation, how to deal with inflation in the real world. Okay, inflation and real goods. So you need to understand this. Real goods go up with inflation. So I've told you that before, but now I'm giving you specific examples of the things I'm talking about. And also I'm giving you an order list for how to invest in your life and how to get rich and thrive in an era of inflationary central banks and big governments. I sound like George Gammon, the famous guy online, the rebel capitalist. Okay, so you can watch his videos. He does his whiteboard, and it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, so what you need to do first is you need to understand that real goods go up with inflation. So what are real goods, and specifically which ones go up the most with inflation? So number one for you to participate in and engage in is an education. The first thing you should do out of high school is you should get further education. All right? So you look over here at my degree, Agriculture and Resource Economics. That's my degree from Oregon State. All right, how much did it cost me for 4 years? It cost $15,000. When I started going there, it cost like $3,000, and when I left, it was like $5,000 a year or something like that. So it was starting to go up. I graduated in 1993, and for those 4 years, it cost me $15,000 for all 4 years. Now, for you folks, it's probably going to cost you $120,000 for the same degree. Remember, real goods go up with inflation. So while you're sitting there flipping out and going, that's not fair, you're right. That's why I don't like inflation, okay? But I understand that's the playing field, that's the cards that I've been dealt, and so I'm going to deal with it in the best way I can. So, first thing you need to do is get an education. Now, should you pay full price? No. Dual enrollment at Lynn Benton, so you take your first 2 or 3 years at Lynn Benton, but you're kind of like an Oregon State student. You get all the fun of Oregon State with half the cost. So look into those kind of things. The military will give you some deals on things. Scholarships, certainly. Community college for the first 2 years and then transfer. It's where you graduate that your degree comes from, not from where you start. There's no asterisk that says went to community college or did dual enrollment. Don't worry about that stuff, okay? Get a degree, and if not, and this is okay too, start a business or get some kind of educational knowledge about some job that you can do. Like people who work for the PUD electric company as linemen, they make more than I do. All right? I have a master's degree and I've spent all this time in college. Or you can get an education, which means a trade. Do you know how to run the surveyor thing? I don't even know what it's called. Do you know how to run heavy equipment? Can you operate a crane? Those people make a lot of money, okay? So that's what I'm calling an education, not just a college degree, but do you have a marketable trade or skill or something like that that's going to, increase your ability to make money? Because every education goes up with inflation. The crane operator's salary goes up with inflation over time. If you have no education, you're like, well, I just didn't do anything. They're going to be like, well, and we're not going to raise your pay very much. So invest in yourself. You might have heard that kind of thing. And I'm saying the first best thing you can do out of high school is get an education. And I mean college, trade school, tech school, whatever it is, do that. Okay? Next thing you should do is buy a house. This is not crazy, amazing stuff. I mean, look at this. What am I telling you? Stay in school and get an education and buy a home. You're going to live in that home. You're not going to have to pay rent, and you're going to collect the money from that as opposed to a landlord constantly paying to them, okay? And you're going to own that house, and it's going to go up with inflation. And when you sell it, you're going to sell it for more than you bought it for. You're going to make money. So, get an education, buy a home. All right. The next thing you want to do is start a business. You can do this either as a full-time job or you can do this as a gig, part-time kind of thing on the side. And a lot of people are really worried, like, how do I do this? How am I going to make this work? So much so that in the United States, nearly every community college, and there's a lot of them, there will always be one in whatever community you're in, Every community college has a small business center, and it is funded by the taxpayers, and someone is just sitting there waiting for you to come and say, how do I start a business? And they're like, oh, well, let me tell you, enter this and that, and they walk you through all the steps on the computer. I know a guy who needed a job, and he was going to start a business as a janitorial service. Because in a lot of cities, especially here in the Dalles, we have very few people that are willing to work hard cleaning things. And so he went to the Small Business Center up at CGCC. He spent the entire day there, but it took one day. He was punching in all the numbers, tax form, identification, business, and he was asking all the questions, and he was watching some YouTube videos on how to do this. And then he started getting bids for cleaning service. And he made between $20 and $30 an hour. Okay? Pretty good. All right? So starting a business, they have these small business centers available to help you. You don't have to major in economics. These people will help walk you through it, and you can go back to them all the time, asking them questions. They are there just to help you start a business. Right? So think about what you'd want as a business and try and start one. Okay. Next thing you'd want to invest in, number 4, would be stock market. And the reason you do this is if this is owning your own business 100%, owning stock is a partial share of a business. If you own 100 shares of McDonald's stock, you are a part owner of McDonald's. You're a tiny little owner, but if McDonald's makes money, they pay something called dividends. And those dividends come out every 3 months when they go to the owners, and that's how you make money with stocks. Also, if the business does well and increases its dividend, other people are going to want it, and they're going to offer you more money for those stocks. Now, the third way you make money on the stock market is inflation. The stock market just goes up with inflation because it is a real business. Just like your own business goes up with inflation, owning part of a business still goes up with inflation. So these are all real goods. So here you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're on to the stock market. Next thing you should look at, or maybe if you don't like stocks because they're pretty volatile and risky, you can do something called REITs. So what this is a real estate investment trust. That's what REIT stands for. All a REIT is a partial share of a real estate venture. Okay? So just like stocks are partial shares of a business, a REIT is partial shares of real estate. And you can get into all kind of things. If you go on to their website, it's the National Database of REITs, it's NAREIT, and you just go to that website and start exploring. And you'll see that this could be like a company that owns 10,000 rental houses, and they make all this money on it, and then they pay you based upon the percentage you gave them. So, if they make a 10% return, you get 10% on whatever you put in. Okay? You can invest in nursing homes. If you think we're going to have a lot of older people coming through the system, you can invest in billboards for real estate, for advertising. You can invest in tech company data centers. As they build these, you would be a part owner of tech company data centers across the country. You can invest in timberland. You can invest in hospitals. You can invest in all kinds of things. So where do you think is going to be the hot market in the future? And almost always these things go up because all the things I named are real. Billboards, tech centers, hospitals, timberland. It's all real estate, okay? So that's the 5th thing you should be getting into is to REITs. After that, you might want to take a look at gold. Now, the problem with gold is that it's not a productive asset. So you've got, your education, that's going to be used to produce more things. And real estate, you're living in it, that's producing something. And stocks are a business, they're making money. Same with real estate. So all these things are productive assets. I would go for those first. You only want to look at gold when you think things are really going to be bad. So world markets are collapsing. The whole world says we're going to bring out a new monetary system. We're going to get rid of dollars and we're going to come out with a whole new kind of money. Well, in the interim, gold is going to be worth a lot because it's going to come out on the other side as being worth something, right? So usually people like to invest in gold when everything else is going down. So if the dollar is collapsing downward, like in an inflationary spiral or a hyperinflation in some countries, gold always holds its value. Now remember, the gold stays the same in real terms, and then the dollars go down. So what happens in nominal terms is it looks like the dollar stays the same and the gold goes up. All right? So keep that in mind. The gold is not producing anything. It's just holding its value against an increasingly worthless currency. Okay? With that in mind, the last thing you want to take a look at is probably Bitcoin, because it is electronic gold. All right? It's got a fixed supply. So Bitcoin is an interesting thing. It's based on prime numbers, and there's not, an infinite number of those to find. You got to keep finding them, and so data mining is one of the things they can do. But it's got a fixed supply, and so because of that, as governments print more and more dollars, it devalues the purchasing power of every printed dollar. So the dollar again is going down, and the Bitcoin is holding its value. So as you see Bitcoin going up, that's because we look at it in dollar terms. We imagine the dollar is fixed, like somehow the dollar can't devalue, which is silly. But what happens is then the Bitcoin takes off, because it takes more and more dollars to purchase the Bitcoin, because the dollars are increasingly worthless. So gold and Bitcoin. If you're seeing problems in the future, and I am, these are some things to hold if you've already done these. Don't go here first. Okay? Don't even go here first. Go here first. First thing you should do is invest in yourself and get an education. College degree, military service, trade school, tech school, art school, whatever it is. Okay? After that, buy a house. Those are the basic things. So don't jump on this list other things unless you want to have some fun. Part of your education is to watch YouTube videos on how the stock market works. It's not that the school system's going to do all this stuff for you. This is just the jumping off point. And that's what most rich people understand. Education is something you do for yourself, not something that is done to you. So if you've been fighting all your short lives so far to resist learning anything, you're kind of digging yourself a hole, because what rich people do is they get an education, number one. So how do I know all this stuff? It wasn't taught to me in school. I had to go online and look at YouTube videos and ask questions and figure out things, and sometimes look dumb, but people would give me the answer. And then I would know about things like REITs and where to find them. So you guys have a jump start on me, because I had to figure all this out myself. You've got it in front of you, and you can Google this, and YouTube's amazing. It can give you all these videos on how to learn this stuff. All right? See you in class.